Stop me if you think you know which locomotive I am talking about. The very first locomotives of a modernisation plan to replace steam with modern traction, they were initially intended for the heaviest expresses on the network. Their unusual wheel arrangement was to help in these efforts. However, that very same underframe rendered them entirely unsuitable for the purpose, and they became mostly associated with freight workings. All delivered in a drab green, a revised livery saw the class being phased out carrying a handsome blue. You'd be forgiven for thinking I was talking about the British Railways Class 40 of 1958. Lumbering giants with an insane power output let down by their bogies. But what if I told you the Nederlandse Spoorwegen, or NS, went through the same song and dance 10 years earlier? This is the Elektrische Staatsspoorwegen 3000. Although the name might lead you to believe this is a Dutch railway system, it was actually their colonial system on Java, Indonesia, linking Batavia and Buitenzorg, the current day Jakarta and Bogor, respectively. Now, I'm going to say something very brave here. Colonialism bad. But please hold your applause and Reddit Wholesome Chunkus awards, for it would be amiss to deny the ESS system brought rise to a very important bit of locomotive engineering. The Java bogie. Whereas on a ordinary articulated locomotive the bogies are on either end of the frame, Java bogies place the bogie in the centre of the frame. In order to utilise the large centred mass but still go round corners, Jacob Büchli designed his Java bogies for the ESS Class 3000 to allow the outer set of driven wheels to swivel on a pony truck. And to aid those swivelling driving wheels into a bend, the design employed the famous Adams radial axle at the front ends of the bogie. These two are distant cousins. So successful was the 1A1 Java bogie at allowing heavy locomotives to smoothly traverse tight curves that after the 1925 implementation on the ESS Class 3000, the Swiss used the same design on their 1941 AE 460. And after witnessing the 460's exploits, the Dutch wanted a piece of that pie. When some failed art student threw a wrench into that plan in the 1940s, instead of heeding this warning, NS went ahead and ordered AE 460's to their specifications in 1945. When in 1948 the first NS 1000 was delivered, the NS had some experience with electric locomotive operation thanks to the London and North Eastern and Société Nationale des Chemins de Fer Français, so they could put the new locomotive to work right away. And a glorious honeymoon it was. The 1000 could reach 160 km an hour or just shy of 100 miles an hour. With a power output of 3,800 horsepower and very controlled driving characteristics, they could reach and maintain that speed easily. And NS was not shy about wanting to utilise this potential. At first radiating from Utrecht to Den Haag or Eindhoven, they were quick to put the 1000 in charge of international expresses like the Rheingold. NS produced plenty of poster and pamphlet depicting the 1000s being the way forward, and yet the 1000s were not a success. The AE 460, which served as the basis for the 1000 design, was deeply flawed. The bearings were terrible for running hot, and the radiator fans were so loud that the class were nicknamed Shriekers. Despite the driving axles being directly under the bulk of the machine, they were very prone to slip. Although the Java bogies were great for letting the loco go around a tight bend, the ride quality was very juddery doing so. All these faults were directly carried over to the NS 1000s. With the 1000s adding their own spin to it by the sanding pipes being too high up, throwing sand at the wheel only to quickly be thrown off, rather than onto the rails. But their absolute worst aspect were the Java bogies. Not only were the bearings terrible for running hot, their driving wheels were also found to quickly develop cracks. Even though they had been employed on Amsterdam stoppers, Utrecht expresses, and the heaviest nighttime coal trains, the 1000s were just not as reliable as the steam locomotives. To add insult to injury, when the NS Class 1100 came along in 1950, NS couldn't wait to demote the 10 members of the 1000 class to regular freight duties. With the June 1955 arrival of more electric locomotive classes in the form of the 1200 and 1300, NS lowered the max speed of the 1000s to just 100 km an hour in 1954. They had officially been gimped just for freight work. But the 1000s gave as good as they got. With 72 of the total 100 tons resting over the driving wheels, they became regulars on coke, beet and limestone trains. Between 54 and 75, the 1000s could be seen virtually anywhere in the country on heavy freight. This one's for the modelers out there. After suffering one accident damage withdrawal and one loco set aside for spares, in 1975 the class were all closely allocated to the Tilburg Central Works, although known to locals as the Atelier. Policy saw a 1000 enter the works every 11,000 kilometres for manual lubrication, which meant that it was not an uncommon sight to see a light 1000 running in around the Tilburg area. During this final stint in the south, regular service did not see the 1000 crossing the Maas. With all of the care, though none of the affection, the 1000s were allocated designated driver pools. In Eindhoven having always been the changeover point for drivers, the long platforms rendered it possible for the superbly controlled 1000s to do a running changeover, where the locomotive did not come to a complete halt when changing drivers. Could you imagine health and safety's cries if such a thing were to happen today? Despite all that care though, a 1000's mechanical failure rate was still 3 times as high as on contemporary locos, and they only did survive into the 1970s and 80s due to them needing little in terms of overhauls and NS being direly short of motive power. In fact, this very shortage of motive power meant that from 1977, the 1000s could once again be seen on international expresses, even if the speed rarely ever exceeded 100 km an hour. End of the line then appeared on the horizon from about 1980. With barely any internationals back to freight it was, occasionally working anti-carriage stock trains in Limburg. Whittled down one by one, a farewell tour ran behind 1001, the very first example, on a bitterly cold December 12, 1981. But the 1000s had the last laugh. February 1982 served as an Indian summer, or winter, for the remaining 1000s, with them working charter trains destined for Switzerland and Austria, much to the dismay of the charter company. In 1982, 1010 was set aside for preservation by an independent organisation, with the remainder scrapped. They always were the odd ones out, the poor old 1000s. But perhaps there's some solace in the fact that they thoroughly earned their place in history, as perhaps NS' most unexpectedly long-lived failure. So it turns out I had a lot more to say about the 1000s as I had originally thought. Semi-rigid frames locomotives were capable of higher power output back in the 1920s, but by the 40s bogie stock had already proven their worth, so why NS still chose to pursue the Java bogie design is beyond me. I do genuinely like the shape of them, even if they do suffer a bit from worshipism, where the front looks more attractive than a profile shot. That being said, I don't feel particularly strongly about them. I like that 1010 still exists, even if it does feel like she's tucked away in a random assortment of rolling stock nearest the entrance of the Dutch National Railway Museum. Thanks for watching, and a huge thank you to Nico Spilt, Martijn van Vulpen, and Dennis Revier, or is it Revier, for their wonderful documentations on NS 1000 history. Their links to their websites can be found in the description as always. I've been thinking about taking a little break from video creation since I've been feeling pretty unwell since the start of October. So after the Halloween video drops, which is a remake of an older animation, I might not be there for the next scheduled video date. So if anything, I hope to see you on Hallows Eve. Cheerio!